So, if you're here, that must mean you really like Set a Party, so much so that you want to know what the behind the scenes is like. Or, if you haven't seen Set a Party and you came across this video, I suggest you go give it a read, as I will be going into spoilers. And it's a comic about a modern world being combined with fantasy elements, if that's what you're interested in. The link will be in the description if you want to take a quick read. This video will pretty much be audio only, kind of like a podcast sort of thing. So, if you want this video to be like ambiance while you draw, or if you're one of those people with short attention spans, play Subway Surfers, then be my guest. I wanted to do editing for this video, but I'm working on Volume 2 right now, so I don't want to wear myself out. I'll go chapter by chapter, pretty much explaining things on how things went from the beginning. Starting with chapter 1. So, I'm gonna be honest, I kind of made stuff up along when I made the story. Keep in mind, I said some. I still had a general consensus of what I was doing with the story. A lot of the ideas I usually stick with are major plot events, like Gray's death in chapter 12, or, Silver and Gray's relationship. The major stuff like that. When it comes to writing, it kind of looks like shit. I normally don't mind that because I'm the only one working on this, and I know what I'm working with, and it just sort of becomes common sense from there. So if I don't end up writing something, I already know what I'm gonna do. So it's just me writing dialogue and occasionally drawing the actions in case I do feel like I'm gonna forget that part. Sometimes I'll change my mind midway through the story while doing rough sketches, either because I think this idea is worse midway through, or I just don't really stick with it. As for the chapter itself, I knew Silver was gonna have a terrible backstory to give reason why he does drugs. And then later he would go on and grow from that, and then realize it's wrong. The reason why I had Silver steal vapes in the prologue was because I remember back in my high school, kids just had vapes everywhere. It was just your average American school. How one time another student tried to offer me and my friends a vape, obviously we all said no, and then the guy would kind of go on with this spiel saying that vapes aren't addictive, and it's not like a cigarette. Then he would just go around talking about how he's a hacker and has a YouTube channel. Look, the point I'm trying to make here is that drug use is kind of common in American schools nowadays, and that was sort of my inspiration. So, what better way than to put that into Silver's backstory to show his escapism with Gabriel? And it's because of Silver's father being constantly abusive towards him, which leads him to a darker path, and then later on he would see a light, literally. If you really look closely of Silver being in the tune at the beginning of the volume, no, not the volume, I mean the chapter, you can see Silver being in a xenoform a little bit, like you can see the lines, which is something I planned since the very beginning, Silver's zenith form. Just a detail I wanted to share out. So, here's the deal. For every volume, I will only have a character say fuck once. The reason why I planned this is because I wanted to have some level of swearing. On the other hand, I was kind of nervous it would turn into Vidsy Pop's level of writing, where the characters sound like they're in a Call of Duty lobby, minus the slurs, obviously. Plus, it makes the story unreadable, and it would just make the characters just be unlikable. This would sort of be the beginning of Silver's development from being a downed mess to someone who could use their powers to save other people. That's pretty much... this right here is pretty much the beginning of Silver's development. Yeah, that's pretty much what it is. Oh dear god, chapter 3. That took me quite a bit to do. So, originally this was going to be a training arc for Silver, and I know that sounds disappointing because that's what it was going to be originally, but the reason why I did so was I kind of built Silver character-wise and wanted to focus on Lumerus. When I wrote this training arc, it kind of felt boring. It was just generic, and I didn't know how to add anything unique or add anything to Silver's character than, oh, he's faster now, and he knows martial arts. So I instead just wanted to make something for what will come in Volume 2 instead. Maybe I'll make a spin-off based off of this scrap training arc someday, once I get the creative skills for it. Also, I was working on this chapter while I was at Universal with Elijah, so I could... Sorry for my stuttering. I was at Universal with Elijah, and that's how I sort of gained inspiration for Volume 2. Now I can speak a little bit more clearly. So, hey, Elijah, if you're watching / hearing this, hey, how's it going? So, for Dr. Force, I never really thought of initially. I just thought he would sort of be this, light to Indigo's trauma until he had to go on a sort of betrayal, to join Azrael's side for reasons he has. Of course, he has Vector, but Dr. Force sort of had the same goal with Indigo, so I think naturally they would join side by side to defeat Azrael. But I would kind of later scrap him away from Chapter 12 because it was just way too many characters to focus on. I had Silver, Lumerus, Indigo, Vector, Fenter, and Gray. I know I'm forgetting the other character because typically I make Indigo and Vector typically the same character. I'll explain more in detail about that. But it was just way too many characters to focus on in Chapter 12, so that's kind of why I swooshed Dr. Force out of the way, which I know sounds disappointing, but I'd rather focus on quality than quantity. You get what I mean? You know, on the topic of Azrael, I really liked drawing him and writing him because of his ability to edit reality, which means I can basically do what I want with him, despite the rules that I have in place. Hell, I even gave him a nice smile to boot before he crushes Indigo's ribs. And Indigo, not Indigo, God. Lumerus, knows how to heal now, making it the start where I have the freedom to how my characters get physically hurt, which means now Lumerus can heal people off screen. Now, for those of you who don't know, Sided Party used to be a RWBY fan project before I turned it into something original. There are these things called Grimm, which are the enemies in RWBY. They would respond to negative emotions and then start being hostile. Rex was originally a half-Grimm, but since I would switch to being original, I couldn't really use his concept anymore for copyright reasons. So he would just be a normal human. But then that would kind of suck. And then I kept thinking, and a light bulb went off in my head. It was the most crazy and batshit idea I ever had. What if I made Rex a DBZ parody? Now, the only thing I would technically be limited to is all Rex could do was transform due to the rules that humans can only learn one spell, but I didn't care. I could still technically do a lot of things with just pure brute strength. And I could just do all these things with Rex. It was by far the best idea, one of the best ideas I ever had, and never regretted it. If Sonic the Hedgehog can do it, then I sure as hell can. I had to give some reason why Lettre Noire existed, so I gave Fenter a backstory, considering she's the founder alongside Gray. I knew that if somebody had to run a criminal organization, I would have to give them some depth on how it came to be, which would have to be pretty dark, and I would consider Fenter's backstory pretty dark alongside Dr. Bernstein. To be blunt, I had to come up with something for the Sidelines team to bring people back to normal as well. What I chose was probably bland, but hey, it works, right? Just punching someone really hard in the head. What probably influenced it was a DBZ Bridged joke, specifically the one from the Cooler movie, where the joke is to defeat Cooler and his minions. They had to punch them really hard. I guess you could say that was my inspiration, but at the time, I still feel like I kind of pulled that out of my ass. But hey, at least I came up with something. Also, can you tell that I am a DBZ fan? Because I am just so inspired by it pretty easily. This chapter was going to be a little different. It was going to focus on Indigo, but then I swapped it to Silver instead, because it didn't really feel like he was being the main protagonist of his own story at that point. At least that's how I felt. But I would later give Indigo to be the focus for the next chapter, which I will talk about in a bit. I thought it was kind of a fun chapter. Kind of glad I could focus on the comedy. Now for the character with the sewn eyes, I never gave him a name. So if you're wondering what it is, my answer is gonna be, I don't know. I just came up with this character on a whim, but I might plan something for him in Volume 2, just haven't figured it out yet. I really wanted to show the reader that Indigo and Vector are like two characters in the same slot of a fighting game roster. Kind of like Ice Climbers in Super Smash Bros. Or Videl using the Great Saiyaman as part of her moveset in Dragon Ball FighterZ. If Side Party was a fighting game, that's how I pretty much imagined those two. I think I did a pretty good job of portraying that. Unless someone says otherwise, then I might improve on that. This was also the point where I kinda lost the previous chapters, because my dumbass would not turn on the cloud save on Ibis Paint before the charging port would go old and broke. I just could not charge my phone anymore. Thankfully, I have a hard drive in case something like this were to happen. I did have to start over this chapter, but I barely begun production, so it didn't really matter too much. In terms of how I could edit other chapters, I can't really go like layer by layer. The best I could do is maybe Photoshop, which I'm probably gonna have to learn if I plan on doing other edits for those chapters. I don't really have anything to say about Chapter 9. Nothing really changed here or anything of note. Yeah, it was just the same as usual. Not as usual, but you get what I mean. This was a huge step creative-wise and behind the scenes. Doing a YouTube video for the Bernstein logs was probably the best decision anyway, because I didn't want the reader to just read a bunch of text. Also, making a video about the perspective of Silver watching these tapes was probably more engaging. Plus, I had a lot of fun doing it, and Elijah was on board with it. Again, hi Elijah. Another thing I want to talk about is what happens while I was working on this chapter. I normally advertise my chapters on multiple subreddits, and of course the usual social media, to get more readers involved with while reading it. Um, then I got contacted by one of the founders of Comcraft. If you want to know what Comcraft is, I already made a video about it. Posting my comic on Comcraft too was probably a really great decision because they're a really great community, and I'm glad to see what Comcraft themselves have in store. This chapter mainly focuses on Silver's morality on Time Stop. It's a powerful ability, but at the same time, it doesn't really have a good past. That would make Silver question how he's been using his ability to stop time after all this time because of Herfa experimenting people with this. And it was more like a mental challenge for Silver so he could grow from this experience, other than letting it eat him alive. And I would kind of use Gray to give him his own backstory. That way, it's like he could kind of use it as an example, like, it doesn't matter on how your powers came from and how other people used it. It only matters on how you use it. And I think I did a pretty good job with that. And I really liked the bit where Dr. Force gets jumped by Latreille Noir. I thought that was pretty funny. The fight with Azrael was something I've been anticipating. I never really showed the backstory of Azrael, so I pretty much summed it up as, and I quote, "I'm similar to you, Silver. Divorced parents, being looked down on, the whole 9 yards." Meaning that he went through a similar origin like Silver did. If you really think about this in perspective, there's two paths. The angel being Lumerus and the devil being Gabriel/Azrael. Silver, thankfully, went on the path of the angel, which was the right move for him, and also why Azrael loathes Lumerus. The Berserk Azrael form, which I'll call it, is a design which I am proud of. At first, I wanted to go with the black pupils for the eyes that are on the one side of his body, and instead I went for white, so that's kind of like the first thing, and you go, yeah, Azrael is definitely not looking good. He looks like he needs ibuprofen or something. Silver's Zenith form would be proof that he moved on from where his powers came from, and this, in my opinion, would also make Gray's death a lot more impactful. Oh, and especially to Fenter. That will pretty much go on in way later into the series. I'm not gonna reveal on how that is gonna happen because spoilers. So yeah. I guess I should talk about Silver and Lumerus's relationship, but before that, I kind of want to talk about this chapter's purpose. This would kind of serve to how I think the reader would be asking, like, any unanswered questions, like how are the sidelines team doing after all this, including Fenter, and it would kind of also answer why Lumerus has this relationship with Silver. Why does she want to take care of him? Why does she want to try to help him, you know? As for Silver and Lumerus's relationship, I've been hearing that it's quite a classic for despising each other, understanding, and then dating, which is where they are now. That's pretty much what I'm gonna say here, because this chapter was also meant to be a teaser for the next volume, I will pretty much be establishing more about Silver and Lumerus's relationship, so be on the lookout for that. Yes, Lumerus will be the protagonist of Volume 2. I don't know if that will be a controversial idea, because I never really heard many comments, or heard any at all. Probably because the algorithm doesn't really like it when I talk about my original creations. It's whatever at this point. I'm still gonna continue the series, and the algorithm can suck my balls. Okay, I continue that, but you get the point. What's next here? I'm reading my script, I'm sorry. If you went through this video, at the fullest, thank you. When somebody, makes fan art, makes a comment, or does anything Set It Party related, it makes me happy. It makes my motivation soar through heights and gets my adrenaline pumping. So, you might be wondering, oh, well, when's Volume 2, at least the first chapter? Right now. I timed this video for Chapter 1's release, which, yeah, well, what are you waiting for? Give it a read. It's my reward for everyone that has been there since the beginning. Sure, a few hundred views isn't a lot in today's terms, but it's a lot to me. Thank you for reading this. I'm OP Silver, signing off.